People in their neighborhood used to say Morgan Carter had to be the unluckiest person in the world. Morgan believed it sometimes, too. From the time she was a kid, bad luck seemed to cling to her like a shadow. If misfortune had a name and a face, it would have been hers. The blows came one after another. If a good thing happened, she barely let herself feel happy, because a bad thing always followed. If she got hired today, she'd likely be laid off tomorrow. If a coworker needed someone to pick on, she was it. No misses, day after day. Bad luck tailed her like a stray dog, just like now. She trudged home with a pout, shoulders slumped, hair a mess, clutching a plastic envelope stuffed with job requirements. She'd been fired again from the cafe, not even a month in, and out she went. She pushed open their little front gate and spotted her dad, Tom Carter, in the hallway, perched on an old wooden chair with a mug of coffee that her mom, Sandra, had brewed for him. He lifted his eyes and smiled, but his brow creased the second he noticed how downcast she looked. "Kiddo," he asked gently, "did something happen again?" He didn't need to ask what she meant. Morgan sighed and sank onto the bench by the door. "Yeah, they let me go. A customer today, gross and handsy. He called me babe and grabbed my hand. I told him off and, well." Sandra stepped out of the kitchen, apron on, ladle in hand. She'd overheard the exchange. "Oh, honey," she breathed out. "That happens. Let it go. Don't let it crush you. There's a better job coming, I promise." Tom chimed in. "You? You'll figure it out. You're tough. You're sharp. You'll land something fast. Don't dwell on that cafe. Past is past." "Past is gone, Dad," Morgan corrected with a small laugh. Tom chuckled. "Same thing." Sandra laughed too and smoothed a hand over Morgan's hair. "Don't be sad. I made your favorite, so give me a smile." Morgan managed one, a teardrop still clinging to the edge of her eye. Her parents never condemned her. They didn't call her reckless or careless. They lifted her up, however many disasters hit. "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad." She stood and faked a bright voice so they wouldn't worry. "Dad, did you water your plants? No? I'll do it." Tom shook his head. "No, sweetheart. Rest. You need your energy. Who knows, maybe you get good news tomorrow. Instead of fussing around, put your feet up." Morgan sighed but pepped up her tone. "You're right. Who, me? I'll be CEO by morning." They all laughed together. Even hounded by misfortune, she didn't give up. People believed in her, her parents and her overly supportive siblings most of all. After losing another job, she picked up food delivery runs. Not glamorous, not steady, but enough to bring home money. Enough to feel useful. On her scooter, she checked the address on her app. Goldcrest Tower. She nearly braked too hard. "Goldcrest Tower?" she whispered. "For real?" Goldcrest Tower was one of Midtown Manhattan's most famous high-rises. She passed it often, but had never set foot inside, let alone gone to the very top. But the order's destination was the penthouse. She couldn't believe it. She'd walk on the golden floors of Goldcrest Well. Stone, but still. So the ultra-rich ate fast food, too. Who knew? She checked the bag and made sure the food was secure. If anything was going to spill, it would spill for her. Not today, please. When she reached the building, her jaw fell open. Huge, gorgeous. She felt like an alien stumbling into a dimension far beyond her reach. Heart pounding, she tried to look composed, even though her beat-up sneakers had no business touching that marble floor. "Good afternoon, sir," she said to the lobby guard with a polite nod born of habit. "Delivery?" "Penthouse?" the guard asked, glancing at the screen. "Right elevator, top floor." "Thanks." She hadn't even stepped into the elevator when sweat dotted her neck and forehead. Not from heat. The air conditioning was arctic. But from nerves. She felt like a stray dropped in a palace, clueless about what was where. Inside the elevator, the mirrored wall gave her a full view. She whipped off her helmet and raked fingers through her cropped hair. She'd always been a tomboy, still was. She swallowed and squared up. "You've got this, Mo," she muttered, catching herself, and cracked a tiny joke to calm down. "Rich folks aren't monsters. They won't bite. You're just delivering food." The elevator dinged for the top floor. The door slid open onto a hallway like a five-star hotel. Spotless, quiet, so still she could hear her own breath bouncing back. She stopped at a door with a brass plate. Penthouse. Why was she this nervous? "Okay, Morgan. Deep breath. You've got other orders after this." She rang. Locks clicked. The door opened. A tall man filled the frame, light-skinned, straight from a magazine, handsome, sharp jaw, dark brows drawn in slight question. He wore only a robe, and even with a glimpse of toned chest, he looked dignified. Maybe that's how wealth worked. Whatever they threw on, they still looked composed. Unlike her, she felt scruffy in anything. For a second, Morgan froze, staring. "Who are you?" he asked in a low voice, brow creasing as if wondering whether he'd forgotten a guest. She blinked, came back to herself, put a hand over her chest, and dipped her head. "Good afternoon, sir. Morgan Carter, delivery rider. Your order." She handed over the bag, forcing a bright smile even as her knees wobbled. He kept studying her, quiet, sharp. The silence roared. She felt like the whole hallway could hear her heartbeat. "You look fam," he began, then paused. "Did you apply for something here before?" She shook her head quickly. "No, sir. First time I've ever been this high up in a building." He was silent a beat, then took the food. "Thanks." He stepped in to get the payment, returned, handed it over. She murmured her thanks, about to head out when soft footsteps sounded from within. A woman appeared behind him. Long hair, perfect legs, silk slip like she'd just woken up, yet still looked like a model. Breathtaking. But the first thing Morgan noticed was not her beauty. It was the scorn in the woman's eyes. Morgan frowned, confused. She hadn't done anything. The woman's stare slid down and up, as if Morgan were a stain on the sidewalk. "I'll take this inside. Thanks again," the man said, and left them at the door. Before it shut, the woman stepped closer, raking her gaze over Morgan like she was trash. Her voice was cold. "Next time, don't come back here." "Huh? Why?" Morgan asked, stunned. No answer. The door slammed in her face. "Wow," Morgan muttered, scratching the back of her neck. "I didn't even do anything." She walked away quietly, carrying an empty insulated bag and the shock of a stranger's rudeness. She replayed the scene. Had she said something wrong? Worn the wrong thing? She checked her zipper. Fine. Morgan, bad luck's your twin." She sighed, heading for the elevator. Maybe the woman was his girlfriend. Maybe they'd argued, still icy. "They look good together, though," she admitted with a half-smile as the elevator descended. "Handsome guy, gorgeous girl, power couple vibes, just crabby." She pushed the encounter from her mind. The rest of the day went by without disaster. No spills, no crashes, no firing, so she called it a win. By the time she rode home, she was even whistling along with a favorite song on her battered but still working phone. At their small but tidy house, the smell of beef stew greeted her Sandra's cooking. Morgan smiled as her stomach growled. "Sweetheart," Sandra called from the kitchen. "All done for the day?" Tom looked up from an old newspaper. He still liked the feel of paper, even if the news was online now. "Everything go okay?" "Yes, sir. No problems," Morgan said, unbuckling her helmet and handing over takeout she'd bought for her parents. Her brother Jared was big surprise at the computer shop again. "Nobody gave you a hard time?" Sandra asked, sitting her at the table. "Nope, all good. Morgan said with a yawn. Sure, Tom pressed. You know you're strong, but you shouldn't swallow every insult. Morgan rubbed the back of her neck. Just one rude person, but I ignored it. I'm used to that. She laughed, trying to light her cursed fate with a joke. Sandra shook her head, smiling. That's what I love about you. You stand up for yourself, but you stay calm. You know when to hold your tongue. You'll find the right job. Tom sat across from her and wrapped a big hand around his mug. Any news from the places you applied to? She shook her head, but kept hope in her tone. Not yet, but I'm praying they'll call. They will, Tom said, squeezing her shoulder. You're a hard worker, respectful, talented. You just need the right opportunity. Hang in there. Morgan's smile returned for real. With a family like this supportive, understanding, she could face any streak of bad luck. Thanks, Dad, she said softly. She wasn't a loser as long as they believed in her. I'll find a better job. Watch me. Weeks of sending resumes, nightly prayers, and follow-ups later, she finally got hired. And not just anywhere, she'd be a bodyguard. Bodyguard, she repeated, grinning at the cracked mirror in her small bedroom. She ran a palm down the new black blazer, a little loose in the shoulders, but it was a real uniform. I look clean, she joked, smoothing the white shirt collar and dusting her face with a touch of powder. Don't look like a mess on day one, she told her reflection, lifting her chin, squaring her shoulders. Professional. Sir, you can't enter without an invitation, she practiced, winking at herself. She headed downstairs to the tiny kitchen, where Tom and Sandra were eating buttered toast with coffee. Whoa, look at you, Sandra said, mid-spread. You look like a movie star. Jared, her kid brother, snorted. Maybe you'll guard the president's kid or some Hollywood actor. Okay, Morgan laughed, scratching her cheek in embarrassment. Lower those expectations, you'll stress me out. Doesn't matter who you guard, Sandra said, slipping an extra toast into a paper bag. Work honestly and we're proud. Here's your breakfast, don't skip meals. Morgan kissed her mom's cheek. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. She snapped a playful salute. Mission accepted. Your new hometown shield is reporting for duty. Tom tried to look stern, failing to hide a grin. Get going, soldier. Training had been thorough. Still, nerves fluttered under Morgan's calm. She was the only woman on her team, and she didn't quite know why they'd picked her. Maybe the interviewer saw her grit. She promised herself she'd excel like this break count, even if bad luck tried to bite. At the elevator of a gleaming midtown hotel, tonight's event was in its grand ballroom, Morgan spotted an older woman struggling with 2 paper bags and a small clutch. She moved without thinking. Ma'am, let me help, she said, easing the load from the woman's arms and guiding her into the elevator. The woman looked surprised, then smiled warmly. Thank you, dear. Good to know kindness still exists. No trouble at all, Morgan said, dipping her head politely. Have a good evening. You too. What's your name? Morgan. I'm Edith. Just call me Edith. Do you work for the hotel? No, ma'am. I'm on the security detail for the gala in the grand ballroom. Ah, well, take care, and thank you again. Hours later, uniform on, earpiece in, Morgan stood at the ballroom entrance checking VIP invitations. The crush of famous faces had her whispering to the guard beside her. There are so many big names. You're telling me? Her teammate murmured back. Years on this job, and this is still the swankiest event of the year. Actors, models, senators, diplomats, CEOs. Another teammate leaned in. And tonight's extra special, he said under his breath. How? Morgan asked. Word is, the city's youngest billionaire is coming. Old money lineage. Morgan's brow knit. Really? Didn't show last year, but he is tonight. A ghost most of the time private. Big deal he's coming. Security outside says his convoy's bigger than the president's. Morgan nodded, still not sure who they meant, but the tension in the air ticked up, exciting and unnerving all at once, invitation after invitation, until a woman approached from the far end of the corridor, posture elegant, wine-red silk gown, hugging a perfect figure, jewelry flashing, but it was the face that seized Morgan's attention. It was her, the woman from the penthouse, the one who'd iced her out. Morgan swallowed and quickly looked away. If the woman recognized her, she might cause trouble. Not on day one. Morgan tactically shifted behind another guard and let someone else welcome the guest. Then another woman arrived, an older one. "Good evening," she said kindly. "May I go in?" Before the guards could help, the woman in red swept over, brows arched razor-sharp. "Wait," she said, coolly. "Looks like we've got someone lost." The older woman met the stare. "This isn't some community event," the younger one said with dripping sarcasm. "This is an exclusive gala for business leaders, celebrities, people who matter. This isn't a charity function. You're at the wrong door. You can't go in." People nearby turned, catching the acid in her tone. "Sorry," one guard said, clearly uneasy. "Ma'am, she has an invitation." "Probably fake," the woman snapped. "Look at her clothes. Look at that bag. Not even designer. And you think someone like her belongs here? Please." The corridor quieted. From a few steps back, Morgan winced at the cruelty. What a small world here was the same contempt she'd witnessed at that penthouse door. Judging by looks, by age. The older woman tried to answer calmly. "A friend invited me. She'll meet me inside." "Whoever that is, tell her to stop giving invitations to random strangers," the younger woman cut in. Her eyes narrowed to slits. "This is embarrassing." Morgan's restraint snapped. She stepped forward. "That's enough," she said softly, but with weight. "This isn't the place to judge someone you don't even know." The woman's gaze swung to Morgan. "You again," she said, recognizing her. "What is your problem? Meddling again? Didn't I tell you never to show your face to me?" Morgan said nothing to her. She gave a subtle signal, and the head bodyguard moved in earpiece in, expression serious. "What's going on?" he asked. The woman pointed at the older guest. "This woman doesn't belong here. There's no way my fiancé invited someone like her." The older woman, Edith, quietly handed over an invitation. The head guard accepted it, glanced down, and went ashen at the name. His throat worked. "Ms. Edith," he began, then stopped at a look from the older woman. He pasted on a smile, straightened, and said, "Ma'am, welcome. Our apologies for the delay. Please go right in." "What?" the younger woman exploded. "You're letting her in? I'm talking to my fiancé. He wouldn't invite someone like her." Edith only smiled at her, said nothing, then turned to Morgan. "I want her with me," she told the head guard, nodding at Morgan, "as my personal bodyguard tonight." Morgan blinked. "Ma'am, I'm not assigned to the ballroom. I'm perimeter." The head guard touched her shoulder. "Go with her. Keep her safe and comfortable all night. That's an order." "Sir, are you sure? That's not exactly protocol. It's my first day." "Exception," he said. "Don't worry about the details. Take care of her." Still puzzled, Morgan nodded. "Yes, sir." She moved beside Edith. The sharp-eyed woman in red stayed behind, seething and confused. They walked the wide, lavish hallway toward the ballroom. Morgan matched Edith's pace, nerves buzzing. First day, and she was now the personal protector of a woman who was clearly not an ordinary guest. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Morgan asked gently when she noticed the older woman's slow steps. "Would you like to rest before we go in?" "I'm fine, dear," Edith said with a soft smile. She paused, looked up at Morgan, and added, And thank you for defending me. Not everyone has the courage to speak up to the judgmental. Morgan rubbed her neck, shy. I just did what was right. I can't stand seeing people shamed for no reason. And it's my job. Edith's gaze deepened, amused and approving. Young people with that kind of principle are rare. A quiet stretch followed. Why does Thalia act like she knows you? Edith asked at last. That woman from the door, her name is Thalia. Morgan gave a sheepish grin. I used to do deliveries. I brought food to their penthouse once. That's where I first saw her. What did she do to you? Did she hurt you? Shame you? She didn't touch me. She just told me never to come back. Edith's brow lifted. Did you wrong her somehow? Morgan shook her head. I don't think so. Maybe she was just in a bad mood. That's exactly her problem, Edith said dryly. One of many. They stopped at the ballroom doors. Morgan took a steadying breath. In a few steps, she'd be inside the most opulent event she'd ever seen. To be honest, I'm nervous, she admitted. Why? Edith asked, kindly curious. It's my first time at something like this. Different world. Everyone's perfect. Everything's expensive. I'm afraid I'll step on a gown or bump someone and I can't pay for any of it. And it's my first day. Edith laughed a light sound that cut through the tension like music. Don't be nervous, dear. Of all the people who should be here, you're one. You know how to respect people. You protect the vulnerable. Not everyone in tuxes and gowns has a good heart, but you, simple clothes or no, have a clean one. The words landed right where Morgan's heart beat. She smiled, nodded, and opened the door. They entered a hall dressed like a palace, glittering chandeliers, plush carpets, guests in their most glamorous attire. As they walked, Morgan noticed that despite Edith's age and simple dress, she carried herself like a woman with a crown. Dignity in every step, warmth in every smile. People greeted her with deference, some reaching out to shake her hand. Eyes slid to Morgan, taking in the female guard at Edith's shoulder. Your grandson? A socialite whispered to another. Edith smiled. She's my bodyguard and she's a woman. Oh, sorry, I got confused because of the hair. They reached a VIP table. Edith sat, but Morgan stayed standing behind her. Why don't you sit, dear? Edith asked. I'd rather stand, ma'am. I can watch you better. Edith shook her head, smiling as if she couldn't quite believe this young woman. The night spun on, jazz band soft as silk, glass clinks, polite laughter, whispers of money and influence. And then the red-gowned Thalia swept back toward them, the disapproval of several guests already shadowing her wake. There she is again, Thalia said, venom lacing her voice, still pretending you belong. I told you, Edith answered, unruffled. I was invited. Oh, please, Thalia scoffed, rolling her eyes. Everyone knows this is exclusive. You don't belong here in that dated outfit with your fake invitation. Who are you fooling? People were watching now. Morgan's hand tightened over her earpiece, but she kept herself steady. You don't have the right to talk to Mrs. Edith like that, Morgan said evenly. Thalia's eyes darted to her, displeased. She's under my protection. You don't get to raise your voice at her. And who are you to speak? Thalia sneered, looking Morgan up and down. You're just a bodyguard. Know your place. Yes, I'm a bodyguard, Morgan said calmly, and I still have a voice, especially when someone's being bullied. I don't care if you work for her, Thalia snapped. She shouldn't even be here. This is a respectable gathering, not a charity case. I was invited, Edith said, rising at last. Her face remained composed. If you doubt that, talk to the organizers, or perhaps your fiancé. Thalia paled for a fraction of a second, then recovered with a scoff. You're bluffing. There's no bluff, Edith replied, voice cool and regal. I don't owe proof to someone whose values are as shallow as her manners. Morgan's respect for Edith spiked. You should stop, Miss Thalia, Morgan added quietly. Watch your tone, Thalia shot back. You'll regret talking to me like that. The tirade kept coming, heedless of the dozens of eyes now fixed on them. Morgan stood her ground, a still point of calm beside Edith. The head bodyguard arrived again, stepping between them. Ma'am, please, he said, courteous but unyielding. Stop. You can't shout at her and shame her here. Thalia rounded on him. And who do you think you are? Who is she? She's nothing some old woman pretending to be someone. She wasn't invited. She never showed an invitation. So why are you letting her in? The head guard glanced at Edith, sighed, and said the words that hushed the ballroom edge to edge. She doesn't need an invitation. Thalia blinked hard. What do you mean she doesn't? Because she's the host of this event, he said. Silence. Faces turned. Morgan, still at attention, looked at Edith, who simply watched Thalia with a small, knowing smile. The host, Thalia echoed, colour draining. Yes, the guard added, she's also your fiancé's mother. Thalia's clutch slipped from her hand. Blood vanished from her face. Mother of what? Yes, ma'am, he confirmed. Mrs. Edith Delamere is your fiancé's mother, and this is her event. Thalia stood stricken as the room's attention pinned her in place. All that arrogance crumpled into mortification. Edith spoke one last time, voice calm as ever. Next time you look down on someone, make sure they're not looking back down at you from above. Thalia had no answer. Edith turned to Morgan, who returned her smile, wonder and admiration stirring in her chest. She hadn't realized how powerful Edith truly was, how simple her clothes and manner, yet how immense her standing. Come along, dear, Edith said gently. Let's step out. They left the ballroom, walking toward a side lounge screened by curtains and greenery. A man stood by the railing in the open air, a cigarette glowing between his fingers, gaze cool on the darkness. Sebastian, Edith called. He flicked the cigarette away and crushed it under his shoe. As he turned, Morgan's eyes widened. She stopped short. It was him, the man from the penthouse, the one with the icy girlfriend. She'd thought he was just another rich kid. But here, in different light, she saw something else. Mom, he said, stepping closer, presence heavy, collected. Morgan's hand trembled for reasons she couldn't name. Edith placed herself between them, facing her son. You saw what happened, she said, voice steady. How she tried to shame me, belittle me because of how I looked, because my clothes weren't as ostentatious as theirs. Yes, Sebastian said. I saw everything. I didn't intervene. I watched, and I'm sorry you experienced that. I didn't know she could behave like that. That woman is the one you're going to marry, Edith said, disappointment threading the words. I cannot imagine what she fed you to make you decide that. At least now, I'm glad you've seen who she really is. I plan to marry her because the Delamere group needs an heir, he answered. I thought she was the best choice. She showed me nothing but kindness. It was what Dad wanted before he passed to see a daughter-in-law. His jaw set. I didn't realize it was all an act. After what we saw tonight, Edith said, I will not accept her as my daughter-in-law. It would disgrace our family to have it revealed she treats people like that. Morgan stood awkwardly off to the side, unsure if she should leave or pretend not to hear. Edith glanced back and touched Morgan's arm. If not for her, Edith told her son, I might have been humiliated beyond repair tonight. She stood up for me when your fiancé didn't. Sebastian turned to Morgan and, for the first time, looked directly into her eyes. He bowed his head slightly. Thank you, he said softly. Thank you for defending my mom. Words stuck in Morgan's throat. She hadn't expected this an apology and gratitude from the man she'd misjudged. "I'll talk to her," Sebastian told his mother. "I'll make sure this doesn't happen again." "Are you truly going to marry that woman?" Edith asked, eyes narrowing. He exhaled. "We'll talk. I need to speak to her first." "I'll excuse myself," he said, and with a nod to Morgan, he strode away. Edith watched him go and shook her head, hurt threading her voice. "I can't believe my son. She had him wrapped around her finger. I warned him, but he wouldn't listen. She's not fit to be part of this family. If I'm to have a daughter-in-law, I want someone like you, Morgan." Morgan said nothing. She didn't want to intrude on a private matter, even as sympathy tugged at her for this strong, wounded mother. Edith's eyes softened with a grief Morgan hadn't yet seen. "Before my husband passed, all he wished for Sebastian was that he find a woman with a clean heart, someone he could marry and build a life with. That's all he wanted. Thalia is not that woman. I've watched her long enough to know." "What should I do, dear?" Edith asked suddenly, surprising Morgan. "I think only Mr. Delamere can decide that," Morgan answered carefully. Edith sighed and nodded. "You're right." They returned to the ballroom. From a distance, Morgan spotted Sebastian Anthony Percival, Sebastian Delamere, shaking hands, smiling politely, composed as a prince of industry. Thalia was nowhere in sight. Morgan guessed she'd fled, face burning. An announcer took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man of the hour, Mr. Anthony Percival Delamere." Applause thundered. Sebastian rose, bowed slightly, and mounted the stage. The room hushed. "Good evening," he began. "Thank you for being here. Tonight isn't just a celebration of success. It's a reminder that no business, no empire is built alone. It's built by people, by trust, and by loyalty." Applause again. Morgan swallowed hard, not sure why a quiet, growing admiration was rooting itself in her chest. He wasn't just skilled, he valued people. "He's been that way since he was young," Edith murmured, eyes on the stage. "Self-driven, always seeking mentors. After his father died, he preferred the shadows-avoided events. But tonight he came back for the people who trust him, and for the company. Tonight is not an ordinary gala. It's a celebration of a business he steadied, and a choice to step back into the light." When Sebastian finished, he stepped down to a tide of handshakes. Morgan stood by Edith, respect turning into something that felt suspiciously like the start of something else. A server approached. "Red wine, ma'am?" Morgan didn't want to accept, but Edith was deep in conversation. Reluctantly, she took a glass. "Thank you." She turned to make space in the crowd, determined not to brush against any kucher, when bad luck flicked her ear. She bumped right into someone. Wine sloshed. She looked up into Sebastian's face. Her heart plunged. "I'm so sorry, sir," she blurted, bowing her head. His expression shifted still gentlemanly, but the temperature dropped a few degrees. She glanced at his shoes. A drop of red stained the leather. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. "I'm really sorry," she pleaded. "Let me clean it, please." "It's fine," he said flatly, already turning away. The panic didn't let her. "I'll just let me please, sir." He didn't protest further, perhaps because of her insistence. Together they went to Edith. "Ma'am," Morgan said, still mortified, "I spilled on Mr. Delamere. I'll clean it in the restroom and we'll be right back." Instead of scolding, Edith smiled. "Go ahead, dear." Morgan guided Sebastian out, hand on his wrist, before she realized, and then snatched it back, flustered. He said nothing, but the severity on his face eased a fraction. In the restroom marble, gilded mirrors, vents humming, Morgan dabbed at his coat, then crouched to polish the smudge on his shoe. Men came and went, glancing, puzzled. "So you're my mum's bodyguard," Sebastian said at last. Morgan looked up, then lowered her gaze. "Yes, sir." "We've met before, right?" "Yes, sir, when I delivered to your penthouse." "Oh, right," he said, a hint of recognition. "Been guarding my mum long?" "No, sir, I'm not actually assigned to her. I'm on the event team, but after what happened earlier, she wanted me with her." He nodded, quiet. "Thanks," he said simply. Morgan blinked. "For spilling on you?" "For helping her. Not many people would stand up for someone like her in that kind of crowd." "I just did what was right." He offered a faint, almost secret smile. When she finished, he took her elbow and helped her up. "Come on, that's enough. Go wash your hands," he said, guiding her to the sink. They stepped out to the hallway, where eyes followed them for reasons Morgan didn't dare guess. Her heart hammered louder with every step beside him. Days after the glittering chaos, Morgan settled into her regular security job. Quiet, disciplined, not chatty traits her supervisors appreciated. Then one afternoon, while she was reviewing rosters, her boss called her in. "Morgan, got something to tell you," he said, glancing up from a document with a grin. "Remember Mrs. Edith Delamere?" "Yes, sir, the woman I escorted at the gala." "She called yesterday, wants to hire you as her personal bodyguard." "Me?" Morgan's eyes went wide. "You," he said. "She was impressed your composure, the way you defended her. She says it's rare to find that discipline and respect." Morgan felt warmth blossom in her chest. "Then I won't say no. I accept good. Tomorrow you'll report to the Delamere estate. And Morgan, don't waste this woman's trust. She's respected across the industry." "I won't let you down," Morgan said, meaning it. The next morning, dressed in a crisp black blouse and well-pressed slacks, shoes gleaming, she checked herself in the little living room mirror. A black SUV idled outside. Tom patted her shoulder at the door. "Be safe, kiddo, and don't be shy." Morgan saluted with a grin. "Yes, sir." The estate north of the city, all stone and green lawns, was something out of a film. Fountains, rose bushes lining the walkway, a fleet of expensive cars. A staff member greeted her at the door. "Ms. Morgan, welcome to the Delamere estate." Inside, marble floors, a sweeping split staircase with scarlet and gold runner, and at the far end, Edith in an elegant white dress, smiling. "Morgan," she called warmly, "welcome to my home." Morgan bowed her head. "Thank you, ma'am." "Don't be nervous," Edith said, patting her arm. "Make yourself at home. I already feel safer with you here." So began a new chapter, from delivery rider to the personal bodyguard of a formidable, respected woman. Behind Morgan's smile, nerves tangled with anticipation. Inside these walls, her life would change. Maybe bad luck would finally lose her scent. Days passed smoothly. The estate was calm, the staff disciplined, Edith kind. But one presence always hummed at the edge of things: Sebastian. Sometimes Morgan would spot him descending the stairs in a white shirt and black slacks, tablet in hand, face set for a day of meetings. When their eyes met, something inside her knees went weak. Her treacherous heart pounded every time. "That's just how my son is," Edith would tease softly, noticing their silent exchanges. "Too serious about work, probably a meeting again." One late night, thirsty, Morgan crept to the kitchen in a t-shirt and shorts. She poured orange juice, then startled at the door opening. Sebastian stood there in a black robe, hair damp from a shower, gaze steady on her. "Good evening, sir," she said quickly. He nodded and came to the island, silent. She held up the pitcher. "Would you like some juice?" He considered, then nodded again. She poured and set the glass near him. "Here you go, sir." "Thank you," he said quietly. You're welcome, she murmured, cheeks warming for reasons she didn't want to untangle. They drank in companionable quiet, a silence that somehow felt full. One afternoon, on her way to deliver security documents to the study, she paused at the slightly ajar door. Voices Edith and Sebastian floated out. "Are you sure about this, son?" Edith asked calmly. "Really sure?" "Yes, Mom," Sebastian said. "It's over with Thalia. We talked and ended it amicably." Morgan blinked. Ended? Relief slipped into her bones like cool water. "It was all just a contract," he continued, blunt. "I proposed not out of love, but pressure your wish for a grandchild, the board pushing me to produce an heir. I'm not getting younger." At first, I thought it made sense. We got along. She performed well. I didn't realize who she really was. We agreed to announce, marry for form's sake, and end it quietly after a year. But after what happened, she couldn't go through with it. I don't blame her. I paid her, and we walked away. Morgan stepped back from the door. It had never been real. Not love, not even a real engagement. A small smile tugged at her mouth as she walked back down the hall, unsure why the knowledge made her lighter on her feet. Weeks later, Edith called Morgan to the balcony at breakfast. "I have an engagement today and can't accompany Sebastian to his meeting," she said. "I'm taking one bodyguard with me, so I'd like you to go with him and serve as his guard for the day. And dear, don't wear your regular uniform. I've prepared a suit in my room for you." In the bedroom, a tailored women's suit lay on the bed, softer fabric, finer stitch, cut to flatter. Morgan put it on and stared at her reflection. She looked beautiful, professional, but undeniably feminine. Edith beamed when she saw her. Perfect. Minutes later, Morgan headed outside, where Sebastian stood by the car, sharply dressed. "1 second, sir," she called, jogging to open the door for him with a respectful smile. He arched a brow at the sight of her. "You're riding along?" "Yes, sir. Mrs. Edith asked me to. I'll be your bodyguard today." He shrugged. "Fine. Back seat." She slid in beside him. In the rearview mirror, the driver's brows lifted briefly at the sight of them side by side. The Delamere Group's headquarters was all glass and stone and quiet money. Morgan tried not to stare at the art and the deep carpets, but she still bumped into Sebastian's shoulder once. "Sorry, sir," she gasped, stepping back. He studied her for a second. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Be careful," he said, and walked on. Upstairs, the secretary greeted him. "Good morning, Mr. Delamere." He shed his coat and took his seat behind a dark oak desk with a view of the city. Morgan stood by the door, spine straight, frozen in place. "Sit," he said, without looking up. "Yes, sir. Sorry." She took the far edge of the leather couch, hands folded, trying not to gawk. He worked typing fast, answering calls, scanning documents. She watched the skyline, then inevitably looked back at him. He was easier on the eyes than the view. Minutes stretched, the soft clack of keys lulled her. Her eyes drifted shut, a gentle shake. "Ms. Morgan." She startled upright. "Sir, sorry, I fell asleep." He looked faintly amused, then stood. She swiped at the corner of her mouth, mortified at the thought of drool. "I'm heading to a meeting," he said. "If you're tired, you can rest here. You don't have to come." She shook her head fast. "No, sir. I'm fine. I'm coming. I'm so sorry." He said nothing, but as they walked out, she could have sworn a hidden smile lingered on his lips. At the restaurant's private room, a cluster of seasoned executives waited. Morgan took a step to stand off to the side, but Sebastian stopped by an empty chair and looked at her. "Sit here." She blinked. "Sir?" "Beside me." She sat, feeling eyes slide her way. The meeting rolled expansions, investments, logistics. A grey-haired investor suddenly smiled at the end. "If you don't mind me asking, Mr. Delamere, is she your girlfriend?" Morgan froze. Before she could sputter a denial, a woman in the group leaned in. "You've never brought anyone to a meeting before, especially not a woman. She's charming. You two match." Heat climbed into Morgan's cheeks. "Number, I'm not his girlfriend. I'm his bodyguard." Laughter bubbled, surprised, not cruel. "A bodyguard? Really?" Another said. "He never brings security in here. Honestly, you look like a couple." Morgan wanted to sink through the floor, but deep inside some small, disobedient part of her glowed. From that day, Edith reassigned Morgan primarily to Sebastian. He didn't argue. They spent more time together, and closeness did its quiet work. Feelings grew. Later, Morgan would learn that Edith had engineered it. She wanted a daughter-in-law, like Morgan. In time, the two fell in love for real dates, family introductions, a long church ceremony, and finally, a home together. One bright, cool afternoon in the Delamere Estates gardens, Morgan stood on the balcony with a mug of coffee, watching Sebastian kneel on the grass, laughing as their twin toddlers chased him with foam balls. "Got you!" one shrieked, leaping onto his back. "No fair, you cheated," Sebastian groaned, collapsing theatrically as the twins exploded with giggles. Morgan smiled at the picture, like a dream made real. The once distant, guarded man now played like a kid with their children. All the frost melted from his heart. Edith drifted to Morgan's side, eyes on the trio. "You've been watching your little monsters for a while," she teased softly. Morgan started, then smiled, eyes damp. "I'm just happy, Mom," she said. "I never thought I'd have a family like this. It used to be a dream. Now it's real." Edith squeezed her arm. "I'm happy for you too. You know, it's obvious how much joy they've brought him. He isn't the same man he was. He's more alive." "Mommy!" the twins cried, spotting her. They barreled toward the veranda. Morgan opened her arms and they crashed into her waist, squealing. "Mommy, Daddy's cheating again," one complained, breathless with laughter. "He said he's the monster." "That's because you're too good," she said, ruffling their hair. "Of course he can't win." "Here comes the monster again," they shouted. Sebastian charged, playing at being fearsome, then wrapped his arms around all three at once. "Family hug," he declared. They stood in a tight knot, twins tucked between them, laughter spilling out over the garden, the sun warm and the breeze cool, problems far away. On the veranda, Edith watched her son, her daughter-in-law, and her grandchildren, radiant with a contentment she hadn't felt in years. And in that moment, Morgan knew she wasn't the unluckiest person in the world anymore. She was the luckiest because of her family. The end. This is Mr. Hope. Thank you for watching. Please like and comment.